Welcome to Secret Story. My first name is Rochelle, but my students call me Madame Anderson. I only teach French 3 days a week and occasionally substitute for the English department. My family is quite well off, and we don't need to work, but I enjoy helping young minds develop and blossom. My husband, Gerald, used to be a history professor and volunteers as an archivist at a museum to occupy his time. He loves ships and the ocean but jokes that I get seasick looking at a fishbowl. It's not far from the truth. I'm a good swimmer, but even going in the deep end of our backyard pool makes me a little uncomfortable. I was confident he hadn't cheated yet, but there were signs he was tempted. I often noticed him looking at other women. Most of them were younger and blonder women. I usually wanted to 2 or 3 times a week, but lately, we were down to once, usually on Tuesday night. He started bringing his tablet to the bathroom with him. I knew I had to do something when he bought an expensive new sports car and started working out at a gym. We'd been married 17 years and I still loved him. I also knew our son Jonathan would be devastated if his father and I ever separated. I figured that if I gave Gerald somebody pretty but underwhelming intellectually, he'd be satisfied in bed but still need me as a companion and partner. I planned to make a deal with him. Our handsome and muscular gardener Antonio had lost his wife recently. I'd noticed him glancing at my body while I lay by the pool and he worked in the backyard. If I could get private time with him occasionally, I'd be fine with my husband having some extramarital fun too. It was nearly 2 on a Saturday afternoon. I sat at a table outside a restaurant, watching some birds in the park nearby as I took small sips of my coffee. I was disappointed to see her puffing on a cigarette as she approached. A few steps from me, she crushed it out with one of her dangerously high black heels. She had on even more makeup than usual. With her long blonde hair, hourglass figure, and pretty blue eyes, she didn't need it. I was sure she got even more male attention than she wanted. "Hi, Mrs. Anderson." "Hello, Chloe." A young waiter hurried over as she sat. He smiled as he asked her, "What will you have to drink? Would you like a menu?" I was slightly jealous since he'd made me wait a few minutes when I got there. "Coffee with sugar and lots of cream." I could see him start to blush when she mentioned lots of cream. He gulped and said, "I'll be right back." As she took her first sip I said, "I have your record right here, Chloe. Please let me know if any of this is in error. You have been held back a grade twice. You are only a high school junior and just turned 19. Your 17-year-old sister is a year ahead of you. You'll graduate when you're 21. If you're lucky. Is that right?" I thought keeping her in school any longer would just be a waste of resources. She squirmed in her seat. "Well, yeah, but I don't have the marks for your other classes handy, but in French and English, your average grades are a D and a C-. You've been disciplined a total of 5 times for inappropriate wardrobe and smoking on school grounds. The last time wasn't my fault. You also come from a single-parent household and have 4 siblings your mother can barely support. Correct?" She was nearly in tears. I'm not out to cause problems or hurt your feelings. I want to help you. I know of a job that might be perfect for you." "A job? You won't need a diploma or good grades. Housing, meals, clothing, and so on will be provided for you." "How does that sound so far?" "But, I don't think I want to go in the army. I don't know much about guns and I'm not brave or anything." I chuckled. "No, it's much better than joining the army. You must have a lot of experience housekeeping, right?" "Yeah, with a baby brother and 3 little sisters. I can cook, do laundry, and wash dishes, and stuff." "Good. I'll give you the particulars after lunch. Let's look at our menus and order, my treat." I saw a mouth-watering picture of a steak sandwich but behaved myself and ordered a chef salad. She made me jealous again by ordering a bacon cheeseburger, fries, and cherry pie for dessert. It felt quite unfair she had a great body but ate high-calorie crap like that. I needed to choose meals carefully and work out 3 times a week. Halfway through lunch, she lit a cigarette and some of the smoke blew in my face. My husband and I had quit smoking long ago. It stung my eyes a little, but I liked the smell in an odd way and had a mild craving. After lunch, I led her to a room at the hotel across the street. I sat in the desk chair and motioned toward the bed that I told her, "Before I can give you details about the job, I have to be sure you're the right girl. I need the money, but my husband will be the only one who sees the video. I'll delete it once he watches." How about 500? She nervously agreed. Okay. I commented, "Nice, very nice indeed. Move your hands so I can get some close-ups. Turn around slowly." Her skin was totally smooth, with no tattoos or wrinkles anywhere. She would have been more attractive without the excessive makeup, but her face was still pretty. That I told her, "Good, Chloe. Now lie down and jill off." She climbed on the bed. "I'm so embarrassed. Could you look away, please?" "All right." I leaned my phone on the desk lamp and checked that it was pointing toward her. I was surprised to feel a little aroused myself. As she dressed, she asked, "So what's the job? If my mom ever found out. If you accept the housekeeper job I'm offering. Your main duties will include cleaning, making meals, and keeping an eye on my son. Sometimes you'll sleep with Gerald, a very nice but older man. You won't be allowed to have other boyfriends. You'll drop out of school Monday morning and move into my guest house. If you..." She interrupted, "Older like a little older, or like ugly and really old?" I held up my phone and showed her half a dozen pictures. "Here he is. Well, he's pretty old but still kind of handsome." She'd irritated me yet again. "Gerald was a month younger than I. If you'll do it for a whole year, you and your mother will get new cars. I'll also pay off the mortgage on her house if you keep him happy 5 years. You'll get free room and board. A salary of $3,000 a month, plus I'll send your mother $2,000 a month to help her out. Your portion could increase up to $8,000 monthly depending on how happy my husband is with your..." I looked toward her crotch. "Performance. Agreed? Wow. So. $5,000 a month. And maybe 10. I nodded and had a snarky thought. It took her a while, but at least she can add 2 plus 3 and 2 plus 8 without using her fingers. She continued, "That's a lot. The job is being a housekeeper and What, exactly?" She was quite a dim bulb, so I made it even more clear for her. "Chloe, I want you to seduce my husband." When Chloe moved in Monday afternoon, my son Jonathan was at a friend's house down the street and Gerald was at the museum. Instead of using a moving van, a friend dropped her off in our driveway. She was only carrying a backpack and 1 suitcase. I felt sorry for her. I'd hate to be poor and have so little. "Hi, Mrs. Anderson." I said. "Hello again, Chloe. Since I'm not your teacher anymore, you can call me Rochelle. Follow me to the guest house and I'll show you around." I led her in and pointed out the rooms. "The kitchen is over there. The living room has an electric fireplace. There's a tub and shower in the upstairs bathroom, but the downstairs one only has a toilet and sink. I'd suggest you use one of the bedrooms to sleep in most of the time and keep the other nice for when Gerald is here." Holy cow. This is nearly as big as my mom's whole house. I don't have to share it with anybody. She set her suitcase and backpack down. I felt slightly jealous and started to reconsider my plan. As I said, "Just my husband sometimes. If I needed to let him sleep with her so he would stay, I'd do it, but that didn't mean I'd enjoy it. You can use the pool in the backyard, and the hot tub and rec room in the main house basement. There are pool and ping pong tables over there. You can do your laundry over there too." She asked, "Where can I have a cigarette?" She followed me outside as I said, "I don't want you smoking indoors or around my son. I guess if the weather's bad you can smoke in the garage, but not in the house or guest house. Okay. Since we're way across town, I think I'll miss my family. Can I get time off to go see them? Sure. If the house is clean, you only need to be here when Jonathan is home. You can go shopping, visit your family, or whatever when he's in school, or days when I'm off work. Your family can come visit on the weekends. That's nice. They would have a blast swimming in your pool. I think one of your sisters is in the same grade as Jonathan, right? Yeah, Laura is 16. She mentioned him being cute. I think she likes him. I smiled that I got an old flower pot from the shed and handed it to her. Use this as an ashtray for the time being. I'll get some the next time I go shopping. We sat at the picnic table in front of the guest house. She lit up and took a puff as I said, I have some personal questions for you. Since you'll be intimate with my husband. Yeah. I was wondering, should I ask him to sleep with me when he gets home? No. You need to be subtle. He has to think it's his idea. He'll need to get acquainted with you first. I don't think Gerald will approach you for at least a week. Just keep the house clean and let me know privately when he starts flirting with you. But I still get paid, right? Language. I don't want you using words like that. My son shouldn't hear it, and my husband won't like it if you use vulgar language. Sorry. I'll pay you every other weekend, starting in about 2 weeks. Here's a little to tide you over until then. I handed her some cash. Thanks. I need to know some things about you. Like what birth control you're on, most of the time. Or every time. I'm probably fine. Probably. I'll get you an appointment at the clinic. The birth control implant is simple, and it'll keep you from getting pregnant for a couple of years. You need to be checked for diseases, too, yeah. I did hand jobs for the 3 guys before him, but I didn't give up the goods until my last boyfriend. He said he wanted to marry me. He got all angry and broke up with me when he saw his cousin kiss me, though. You cheated with his cousin? No. I just kissed her. It's not like I sleep around a lot. She started it. So, you like girls too, Chloe? Some are really pretty, but that was the only time I kissed one. I tried it with a girl once, a long time ago. I understand. Our eyes locked for a few seconds, then we smiled and giggled nervously. She turned away as I asked, do you have any medical problems the family should know about, diabetes, allergies, or anything? No. That's good. How much do you smoke? When I was in school, I could only get away with 3 a day, sometimes 4. Maybe 6 or 7 on weekends. It's unhealthy, but about 5 a day isn't that bad. My husband and I used to smoke in high school, so I know how hard it is to quit. I'll help, if you want. Maybe later. Once I get comfortable here. Sure. I hope you like animals. Big dogs kind of scare me, but most animals are okay. That's good. Jonathan has a hamster, a turtle, and a lizard. He wants to be a vet. Does he need to go in the military? That's where vets come from, right? I bit my lip a moment to avoid laughing, then patiently explained the difference between veteran and veterinarian. As I finished giving Chloe a tour of the house, my son came home. I introduced them. Jonathan, this is Chloe. She's going to be our new housekeeper. When your father and I are away, she's in charge. Do what she says. He asked, your little sister is Laura, right? She kinda looks like you. Not as grown up, though. I saw he was staring at the shape of one of Chloe's nipples as it pushed against her thin bikini top. She nodded, uh-huh. She's one of my 3 sisters. I think you're in the same grade. Yeah. We're in most of the same classes. That reminds me, I need to do my homework. As he ran upstairs, the bulge in his jeans told me homework was the last thing on his mind that I told her, Gerald might be offended if you look too sleazy, and I don't really want my son seeing you like this. It's too distracting. I don't really have anything like that, except my winter clothes in the attic at home. I sighed. Let's go look in my closet. I think I have some things in your size. I knew I had several dresses that would fit her, but they were from 10 years and 15 pounds ago. She dropped her running shorts and tried on half a dozen dresses in my bedroom. She pointed to a cardboard box of random old things on the closet floor. What's that? Is that real gold? I looked in the box. Yes, it's a gold-plated cigarette holder. Gerald gave it to me for my 18th birthday, along with that gold-plated lighter. We quit smoking about 17 years ago, when I got pregnant with Jonathan. She stared at them a little while and I told her, I guess you can have them, since I don't smoke anymore. Really? Thanks. She put the holder in the corner of her mouth, then held it and waved it around like a wand. Does this look sexy? I smiled. That's why Gerald gave it to me. Let's get back to finding a dress you like. Gerald walked into the bedroom as she dropped her current dress to the floor. She shrieked, "Iya!" She grabbed the dress and held it in front of her as I tried to explain, Gerald, this is our new housekeeper, Chloe. He turned and walked out quickly that I followed him and said, Chloe is from a poor family, and I was giving her some of my old clothes. His face was a little red and I saw one of his hands was clenched in a fist until he took a deep breath. He paused a moment then turned around. It's nice you're helping her out. That was quite a surprise. Sorry, I should have locked the door. It's all right. Do we have plans for dinner? I'm famished. He smelled like soap and his dark hair was damp, he had taken a shower recently. I saw his gym duffel bag in the hall. I'll help Chloe make something once she finds a dress she likes. I hope you had a good day. I was sorting old photos of sailing ships in the museum basement most of the day. It was nice. I'll grab a snack and help Jonathan with his homework. Let us know when dinner is ready. Sure. The three of us made small talk through dinner, then watched a movie with my son. After Jonathan went to bed, I suggested, Gerald, maybe you could help Chloe unpack. You could get to know her a little. She rested a hand on his arm. Would you please? He said, okay. Have you thought about what classes you want to take in college, Chloe? I giggled quietly as they walked out the back door, knowing that would be an interesting conversation. I looked out the window and saw them sitting at the picnic table. Chloe was smoking with the holder, and his attention was firmly focused on her mouth. I smiled, knowing my plan was going well so far. I knew that with his great mind, he'd quickly tire of conversations with an airhead like her. He'd still need me as a partner and companion, Chloe's point of view, as I put a menthol 120 in the holder Mrs. Anderson gave me, I answered him. Jerry, I'm fine with the job. I don't like to read, and I hate math. Why do I need more school? I saw he was staring at my lips as I lit up and took a puff. I had to suck harder than usual to get much smoke, so my cheeks moved in more. I could tell from the look on his face he liked that. He said, I guess you have a point, if you're actually happy. I just started, but I think I'll like it. She said I only need to cook, keep the house clean, watch John, and Slee. I froze a second. I'd nearly given away the secret. And some other stuff. You're a lot more handsome than the pictures she showed me. You look much nicer than our last housekeeper, too. She was 50-something and shaped like an apple. I laughed and asked, she said my family can visit and use the pool. They're welcome anytime. Have fun with them in the pool, rec room, whatever. Our home is your home. That's so nice of you. Thanks. He asked, how much are we paying you? $3,000 a month, and more when you. I froze. I'd almost given away the secret again. And? He looked at my mouth as I sucked in another big puff, giving me time to think a little. And more if your family is happy with me. If you do a good job, that's fair. I took a last puff and put the cigarette out. I said, that was a really embarrassing way to meet you. I'm glad your family is so nice. Come in and help me unpack. I held his hand and led him into the guest house, my new home. I could hardly believe I'd have such a big place all to myself. I moved the shirts and shorts from my suitcase to the dresser drawers. By the end, I saw him sweating a little and there was a lump in the front of his pants. I thought I should try seducing him and gave it a go. I faked a yawn and said, my mom would always kiss me goodnight. Would you give me a goodnight kiss? I was disappointed when he kissed my forehead. Good night, Chloe. I was horny and a little sad, but hopeful that I'd get him the next day. He was really smart and kind of hot for an old guy, Gerald's POV, the few hours since I got home were arousing but quite confusing. For a few seconds, I thought I'd caught Rochelle cheating on me with a woman, but her explanation that Chloe had been trying on clothes made sense. Rochelle was fully dressed and there were clothes scattered all over the room that I wondered why she encouraged me to help Chloe unpack. It would give me time alone with a very attractive woman I'd just met. I was over twice her age. I was probably in college when she was born. Rochelle had been staring out the window both times. She'd probably seen Chloe holding my hand and me kissing her brow. Instead of her questioning me when I returned to the house or acting jealous, she smiled and asked if I would wash her back in the shower. In my excited state, I was happy to play along that I imagined Chloe in the girl I had a crush on, Emily, and was soon close to climax. Rochelle moved away and reminded me, shower. So good, Gerald. That was amazing. You too. That was great. After toweling each other off, we climbed into bed. It was the best night we'd had in months that I was kept awake by some nagging thoughts in the back of my mind. I wondered why my wife would show the new housekeeper pictures of me, why Chloe was trying to seduce me, and why Rochelle didn't seem to mind. I thought about it for quite a while. I wasn't sure what Chloe and my wife were up to, or what I should do about it. That I also wondered if my crush on Emily would lead to anything. I thought if I decided on Emily, a few more weeks at the gym would get me in decent enough shape that she'd go on a date with me. Taking her somewhere in my new Ferrari would greatly improve my chances. Too, my wife Rochelle shut off the 6:15 alarm and started getting dressed. She reminded me, I'm taking Jonathan to a soccer game after school. We should be home around 6. I sleepily mumbled, okay. Have a nice day. You too, Gerald. See you tonight. I volunteered at the museum and didn't have a set schedule. I usually left home around 8:30 a.m. I pulled the sheet over my face to block the early morning sun and pondered my situation that I'd met Emily when I stopped at an antique shop near the museum 2 months ago. I glanced at the young and attractive redhead several times as I browsed the interesting items. I was quite surprised to see a cannon monkey leaned against the wall. Sometimes they were called ball monkeys instead. The large and heavy square plate of brass had 25 hollows bored into it at even intervals, to keep cannonballs in place on the gun deck of a sailing ship. More cannonballs would be stacked on top, forming a pyramid that I thought it would make an excellent conversation piece in my basement rec room, or a nice decoration for the back patio. I looked at the price and was quite surprised. The person running the shop knew how rare they were and what it was worth. Emily saw me looking it over quite a while and walked near me. She asked, "Do you know what it is?" "Yes, it's a cannon monkey. I like it, but the price is a bit steep." She said, "My grandfather tells a story about a ship sailing in the far north carrying some Arctic explorers, Fred Cook's expedition, I think. In the cold, the brass monkey and the iron cannonballs shrank at different rates. When it got down to 35 below, a stack of cannonballs came loose and scattered all over the deck. They discovered 35 below is, I'd heard the story before and finished it with her, cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey, ha 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 ha. She blushed as she laughed, and I thought she was terribly cute. She told me she was a literature major, planning on a minor in history. She worked at her grandparents' antique shop when she had time between classes, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons that I bought the Canon monkey and returned to the shop on Tuesday afternoons to browse and chat with her. I loved my wife Rochelle and thought I'd never cheat, but Emily was amusing and quite tempting. I was hopeful but thought it unlikely she'd be into my secret fetish, female domination. I started getting hard again as I thought about it that I knew my wife Rochelle loved me, and she'd given me a son, but as she aged she was losing her visual appeal. Her only hint of dominance was, don't forget to put your dirty clothes in the laundry basket. In bed, most of the time she just lays there. Other than our Chloe-inspired shower, most of the excitement was gone. Without a doubt, Chloe has an excellent body and pretty face. She's a nice girl but talks with her seem to quickly descend into the land of beer parties and fart jokes. She doesn't have the knowledge or mentality to follow most of my best stories. I usually visited Emily at the antique shop on Tuesdays, but the next day was Thursday and I knew she'd be working. I debated whether I should bring her flowers or another small gift and invite her on a date. If it went well, I could make up some conference or meeting out of town as an excuse to be away that I suddenly remembered my wedding anniversary was on the coming Saturday. I was losing interest in my wife, but wasn't going to be a total jackass and cheat on our anniversary. I still cared for her, and she didn't deserve that. Instead of visiting Emily, on Thursday I'd go to a jewelry store and buy some earrings for my wife. After a bit more sleep, I saw the clock showing 8:03 and decided it was time for breakfast. Chloe, I woke up at 6 a.m. to make them breakfast. After Mrs. Anderson and her son left for school, I decided to get some more sleep before cleaning up the house. I was finally starting to doze off when I heard a car door close and looked out the window. I saw Jerry sitting in his hot red convertible. He revved the engine a couple times and the sound was high-pitched, not like most cars. I liked it a lot. I thought he looked handsome in his suit as he backed out and drove away. That I laid down for a few more minutes and heard an awful racket. The gardener was trying to start the lawn mower. It would go for maybe 10 seconds then quit. The noise was annoying, but I thought his dark tan and big arms were kind of hot. Most guys look gross that way. I was feeling great and almost there when he got the mower to work. He drove it out of sight and started mowing the front lawn, where I couldn't see him. Dang it. It was obvious why Mrs. Anderson liked him. That I got dressed, then thought about what I should do to make Jerry like me as I cleaned up the kitchen. Letting him stare at my mouth when I smoked didn't work either. Most guys would have been all over me. She had told me he didn't like women dressing sleazy, but that didn't make any sense. Guys love that. For a second I wondered if maybe he was gay, but he had a kid with his wife. I wondered if asking him to put sunscreen on me would work. That was how I got my last boyfriend. I figured it was worth a try. Gerald, as I got home from the museum, Chloe was walking out to the pool. She waved and shouted, "Can you help me a minute?" She sat on a lounger and held up a bottle of sunscreen as I got there. I can't reach my back. Would you put some on, so I don't burn? Rochelle and Jonathan wouldn't be home for hours. It was an obvious ploy to get me excited, but I knew I could control myself. I decided to have a little fun and feel part of her beautiful body. I don't mind. Sunburns can be painful and lead to skin cancer or other problems. We don't want that. She smiled and said, "Don't want a string in the way." I poured some more sunscreen into my hand and took my time finishing her back. I enjoyed feeling her smooth warm skin. She sputtered a moment. But. Thanks. She was clearly disappointed as I walked in the house. Rochelle, Chloe met me at the front door and said, "We need to talk." I followed her out to the guest house. I keep trying so hard, but he still doesn't like me. What can I do? She had tears forming at the corners of her eyes. When I do sexy stuff, most guys are like lions looking at raw meat. No matter what I try, he doesn't like me. I hugged her and patted her back gently. He likes you, Chloe. He really does. He just needs to get to know you first. You've only been here 2 days. You don't need to screw him tonight or tomorrow. Another week or 2 is fine. Take it easy. She sniffled. Thanks. I'm glad you're so nice to me. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I had a sneaky idea. If you find his tablet and he's not around, check what websites he's been going to. I think if you see what kind of movies he's been watching, it will give you some ideas. If he watched Mission Impossible or Spider-Man, how does that help me? She seemed shocked. He's a nice guy. I don't think he would watch that stuff. You're so sweet and naive. Take your time and he'll come around. Go fix your makeup before dinner. On our 18th anniversary a few days later, Gerald got a cake and gave me a pair of earrings. We had a little party with the family after dinner. I had no doubt the large diamonds in the earrings had cost quite a bit, but he didn't do anything that was actually romantic. He didn't take me anywhere and didn't even get flowers or champagne. When he got in bed, I rolled away and silently cried myself to sleep. Chloe, I'd been the family's housekeeper for 4 days. Like Mrs. Anderson had said, I grabbed Jerry's tablet when everybody was away from home. I looked up the instructions on a website, and copied his internet history to my phone. I put the tablet back and smiled, knowing I'd done something right. Welcome to Secret Story, I went off like never had before. I worked for them, though. There was no way that would ever happen. If I tried telling Jerry what to do I'd probably get fired. I wondered what it would be like if Mrs. Anderson stood over me and pulled my hair, like in a lot of the videos. I didn't think I'd like it. If Jerry ordered me around like that it might be okay, but I'd much rather do it to him. I looked at the clock and realized I forgot to do the laundry. It was already 9 p.m., but if I didn't do it Mrs. Anderson might be mad. I sighed and got dressed, then took care of it before I went back to bed. Gerald, 2 weeks after Chloe started, I stopped at the antique shop on Tuesday afternoon. Instead of going overboard with a dozen roses, I brought Emily a single pink carnation. We flirted a little and discussed the Aubrey Maturin book series, which the movie Master and Commander was based on. I loved it and had read the whole 20-book series twice, but she was only on book 11. I asked her, how do you make a pirate furious? How? Take away the P. Pirate. Irate. Ha 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 ha. We chuckled and she asked, why don't sailors like traveling on twisty roads? Why? Scurvy. I laughed at her equally terrible joke and looked in her eyes. She twirled some of her hair with a finger and bit her lip slightly, making it obvious she liked me. I said, Emily, I like you quite a lot. And I'd enjoy spending even more time with you. However, you deserve honesty. I need to let you know, I'm married. I'm not, and I don't want to be any time soon. She asked, would you like to have lunch with me Saturday? Sure. How about a picnic on the beach? Pick you up at noon. That sounds nice. I love the beach. She rested her hand on mine and kissed my cheek before I left. I felt a bit guilty but terribly aroused. Days later at our picnic, we kissed a few times, then once more when I dropped her off at home. I was right, she loved riding in the Ferrari. Rochelle, I called in sick to work, since I was so upset. I'd hired Chloe over 2 weeks ago. It was wonderful. In the last 2 weeks. He'd only let me kiss him a few times. Each night he took his tablet into the bathroom and stayed in there a long time instead of doing anything with me. I was sad, but also terribly horny. He hadn't fallen for Chloe either. I wouldn't mind so much if he started sleeping with her. She was beautiful, but I knew he would never run off with a girl so simple. She took care of my son and the house, but I knew she wasn't capable of anything more complicated. I was annoyed that with the face and body of a beauty contest winner, she couldn't even seduce a 40-year-old man. I was glad she'd left to visit her mother this morning that I heard a loud and annoying noise that still made me smile. Our gardener Antonio was starting to mow the lawn. I threw on a swimsuit and walked to the backyard with a towel over my shoulder. As if I was going for a swim. I smiled and motioned for him to shut off the mower. I noticed him staring at my legs a moment as I walked toward him. I liked his thick mustache and brawny shoulders. "Good morning, Antonio. I was thinking of making some changes. Could you get rid of that row of shrubs and plant rose bushes there instead? And there are some low branches that get in the way. Could you trim the trees?" "Of course, Sonora. Whatever you want." He smiled at me that I rested a hand on his shoulder. "Call me Rochelle. Just charge the roses to our account." "Thanks." "See, Rochelle. De nada." I went up to my bedroom as he started mowing again. I closed the curtains most of the way and watched him work. I got a quick breakfast while he left to get the roses and returned. He started digging and I saw sweat glisten on his neck and muscular arms. I was quite happy when he pulled off his shirt and dug topless. I had a strong urge and started rubbing myself as I watched him. Gerald, in the morning, my phone rang as I was pulling into the museum parking lot. I stopped in my usual spot and answered. "Hello." "Hi. Sorry, I was calling Rochelle Anderson. This is her husband Gerald. I must have grabbed her phone by mistake." "Oh. I just wanted to know where she put the French 2 tests from Friday. I was going to hand them back. Since the grades are in the system, it can wait. Sorry to bother you." "No problem. Have a nice day." I was annoyed I had the wrong phone but didn't want to drive all the way home and back. I figured since Rochelle usually turned her phone off while she was teaching and I rarely got calls from anybody but family, I'd just switch phones with her later. That I went to the bathroom at lunchtime and sat in a stall. I was bored and started looking through my wife's phone. I was astounded. I muted it quickly and watched a few moments. It was very arousing, but still a little upsetting. I could tell she was very harassed and didn't want to do it. I felt a little guilty, but emailed a copy to myself, then deleted the email from Rochelle's phone. I'd watch it in full later. Rochelle, when I noticed Gerald's phone was on the nightstand instead of mine, I thought of calling to tell him about the mix-up. I decided to do some snooping first. I saw he'd emailed himself the video I'd made of Chloe in the hotel room, a promising sign. Then why happiness quickly faded when I looked at his calendar. He'd been leaving the museum at 3 instead of 5 on Tuesdays and some Thursdays. On those days there were 2-hour appointments with Emily. Last Saturday there was one for museum admin meeting, Beach, Emily. He had told me he was going to a meeting at the museum. He lied to me. I was deeply shocked and felt like vomiting when I saw an appointment a little over a week in the future. On a Saturday and Sunday. Maritime Archaeology Conference Emily. He'd booked a single hotel room but 2 round-trip flights to San Francisco. I knew I had to help Chloe's seduction efforts and came up with a radical idea. That night as we were sitting in bed, I mentioned to Gerald, "I heard the Thompsons down the block are getting divorced." He didn't look up from his book but replied, "That's a shame. They were together about as long as us. I think they have 3 kids. 4 kids. I can kind of understand, though. Just look at her. Isn't she a real cutie?" I showed him a picture of the beautiful cheerleader on my phone that he stared a little while and I could tell he was thinking hard. He said, "Still, that's not a good reason to cheat when you've been together so long. And the Millers got divorced when he got caught with his office assistant. She's hot, but still." He cleared his throat and said, "They were together over 20 years. He shouldn't have done that." I took a few deep breaths and readied a certain video. I said, I know men have certain needs. If you were careful to keep it a secret and nobody ever found out. I coughed and was too upset to finish my sentence. I nervously suggested, if I never caught you, we wouldn't have to do anything about it. I might try not to know, so we could stay together if. I fought to stop them, but tears streamed down my face. It took him far too long to answer, she's hot, but I'd never cheat on you. You're worried over nothing. Let's go to sleep. I tried to console myself, repeating the thought that if he cheated with Chloe at least he would stay. As I gave my speech at the Maritime Archaeology Conference, I stared at pretty Emily in the fourth row. I also liked that she had her shoulder-length blonde hair in pigtails, making her look even younger and cuter. And the French gunnery was so poor that instead of firing a warning shot, they actually hit the bow of the Spanish ship. The unlucky cannonball struck a cask of gunpowder which set off several more. It obliterated the forward section of the ship and caused it to sink in the time taken by 10 breaths. According to the only written account. Emily beamed with affection and pride for me, until I reached a pivotal moment of my story. Explorers and salvors searched over 300 years but couldn't find the wreck. The only clue to the location was a damaged note written by a French priest who witnessed the explosion and died of disease shortly after. My brilliant wife determined the note had been translated incorrectly. Instead of the south side of the island, the battle had been on the sunny side. Since it happened in the morning, that meant east. After our salvage team recovered more than 8 tons of silver and a few thousand gold coins, I asked if I could keep the medicine bottles and medical tools that had belonged to the ship's doctor. I intended to set them up as a museum exhibit. The other team leaders were happy to agree. I returned home and stashed the finds in a few crates in my basement. We were quite happy with the historical value of our discovery, and even happier the gold and silver earned each of us a few years' pay. About a year later my wife reminded me to move my old junk out of the basement. I started sorting and evaluating the items. I noticed that the largest medicine bottle didn't have any liquid in it. I was astounded to find it was full of emeralds. Nearly $40 million worth of emeralds. Apparently, their sawbones was a jewel thief, too. I paused as the crowd reacted, then continued. I'm a fair and reasonable man, so of course I gave half the gems to the rest of the salvage team. I donated 5% each to the university where I taught and the museum where I currently volunteer. I jokingly added, I'm alive and intact, so I obviously gave the rest to my wife. I paused for a lot of laughter and concluded my talk. Attention to detail can make all the difference. Check and recheck even the smallest things. It might lead you to a great discovery or save one from being lost. Thank you for your time. As Emily and I walked from the auditorium, she had a pained look on her face. She quietly said, You talked about your wife a lot. You weren't involved with the salvage. And I couldn't really mention my secret girlfriend if I want her to stay a secret. She sighed and nodded. I held her hand as we waited for a taxi. On the way, she said, let's go see the sights and chat about US the rest of the day. We should get some condoms on the way to the hotel, too. She smiled and kissed my lips. Rochelle, my son Jonathan was staying at a friend's house over the weekend and would return home after school Monday. As we ate supper on Saturday evening, I informed Chloe of the situation. Since you failed to win Gerald over, he's in San Francisco cheating with some other woman. I'm so scared that I'm going to lose him. She looked alarmed and told me, I tried hard. I really did. I'm so sorry. I felt tears on my cheeks and remembered a quote from an old friend. When the goin' gets tough, the non-tough go drinkin'. She'd usually say it while handing me a glass of something strong that I smiled and told Chloe, I'm not going to be sad and cry all weekend. I won't do it. I took the most expensive bottle from the wine rack and searched half the kitchen for the corkscrew. I held it up triumphantly and said, turn on some music. Let's dance the sad away. Later we were halfway through a second bottle of wine. Chloe was sitting next to me, singing very loudly with somebody who was even more out of tune. "I guess that must have been me," she said. "I want a cigarette, but I'm too polluted to walk." I pulled the fake flowers out of a vase and drunkenly said, "Sakai. I done care anymore. Ash in the vase. Gimme one too." I coughed through 2 big puffs, then got a strong nicotine rush as I began to like smoking again. Chloe slurred her words too, as she said, "I don't know why hic. Don't know why he needs somebody else. You're so pretty. Such nice hair. I have no idea how he resisted you. You're gorgeous." I squeezed one of them to prove my point. "Anybody would be lucky to have you. Anybody." She held one of mine and said, "You can. I like you too. Gerald." I was actually planning to cheat on my wife. Despite Rochelle's blatant offer not to catch me, I couldn't sneak around and lie to her over and over. I felt terribly guilty about the few I had already told her. Did I really want to divorce her and wreck my family, just for sex? I thought intensely and quickly as the taxi approached the restaurant. As we got out, I told Emily, "I'm so sorry, but I can't do this. Here's the hotel room key and some cash. I'll text you the reservation for your return flight." "What? But we have a lot of chemistry and get along great. I think maybe I love you." "Sorry, Emily, but I just can't. I love my family too much." Rochelle, Chloe didn't help by saying, "But Jerry, it's not what it looks like." I was confused and upset, and still loved my husband. I drunkenly lashed out at the one who had caused the disaster, at least in my mind. "Chloe, you worthless moron. You cost me my marriage. You couldn't win his heart so he would stay here. Then you seduced me. You're fired." Chloe stared in my eyes and yelled, "No. Get back here, Jerry. I am not fired. You two are so stupid. You still love each other, right?" We nodded. "Then this is how it will be. During the day I do my job, and you two are the bosses. At night, I'm the boss." She grabbed Gerald's hair tightly, then mine. "And at night my new pets will do anything their mistress says. Right?" I saw a bulge in the front of Gerald's pants and was getting turned on again myself. Gerald stared into my eyes and began to nod slowly. I turned toward her and nodded too. At the same time, my husband and I said, "Yes, mistress." She stared into my eyes. "Good. Instead of Rochelle, your new pet name is Roach. Since we wear the same size, go get me your highest pair of heels." "Roach. I know my other pet, Germ, likes high heels, right?" "Yes, mistress. Very much. What are you waiting for, Germ?" I drunkenly stumbled upstairs to get the shoes as she lit another cigarette that I held the shoes out and objected, "But I don't like the taste." She whispered in my ear, "If you want to keep him, this is your chance." "Yes, mistress." She plopped down on the couch exhausted. Chloe found her cigarette holder and put one of her very long menthol 120s in it. She touched the unlit tip to my nose. "Stop. You're not people tonight." I rolled over and kneeled in the middle of the living room carpet. "Please, Gerald. Please." She held his hair again, preventing him from approaching me. She asked, "Please what, Roach?" After a shower, the three of us put on bath robes. Chloe and I smoked as we sat at the picnic table in the backyard and discussed some things. I said, "I think we should have some rules, so everybody knows what to expect." Chloe asked, "Like what rules?" "No more smoking in the house," Gerald said. "Doing it in the living room was pretty hot, right?" "How about only the bedroom if Jonathan is home?" Chloe nodded and I agreed, "Okay." I nervously inquired, And what about other people? If If we agree on some things, do you want to be with your other girl sometimes? If I can be sure you're not going to divorce me or leave. I don't know if Emily will forgive me. But maybe. Do you want to be with somebody else too? Somebody other than Chloe? Before I could answer, Chloe said, yeah. We think the gardener Antonio is hot. She nervously giggled, he he he. And how about we can smoke in the guest house? Gerald agreed, all right, just be careful smoking in bed. Chloe reached in his robe. Is there anything still in there, Jerry? He smiled. I think I could go one more time. He jumped up. Guest house bedroom, it is. Chloe angrily told him, you don't have enough left for your mistress again. You get double the punishment tomorrow. Finally one Friday, the day after Laura's 17th birthday and a month after Jonathan's, I brought her to our house. I called my son to the living room and watched Chloe give them some instructions. John, please sit on the ottoman. Good, Laura, since you're both too shy to ask each other on a date, we're going to help you out. You're here as a sitter. Chloe asked, do you like her, John? He cleared his throat and swallowed. Yeah. A lot. Do you like him too, Laura? Yes. We'll be back Sunday. Don't mess up the house or make any babies while we're gone. Chloe mentioned, you know what John would be doing at night if my sister lived here. There's no way he would care if I sleep with you too. Can she move in? My wife coughed in surprise. I said, that's a clever idea, Chloe, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. We picked up Emily and Antonio on the way to the restaurant. After a tense but nice meal, we went to a hotel room upstairs. Emily nervously looked at my wife Rochelle as she stared back with jealous anger on her face. Antonio and Chloe smiled and held hands that I started the conversation with, Antonio, you've always done a good job with our garden and yard, so I'm giving you a raise. We'd like you to come over 3 times a week, instead of weekly. If Chloe or my wife want some special attention from you, feel free. Thank you, senor. Rochelle nervously told Emily, if you want to kiss or screw my husband sometimes, I guess that's okay. But you do it away from our family and bring him home when you're done. Understand? You give him back to me. Emily anxiously assured her, of course. We want to have some fun, but I know he's mostly yours. I asked, so we all agree. Chloe and Rochelle can sleep with Antonio when they want, and I can spend a few nights and most weekends with Emily. Agreed. Yes. Okay. See. Emily was 23 and legal to drink, so after our tense conversation we went to the hotel bar. I ordered a good cognac and Emily tried her first Mai Tai. We sat close together and watched a few people sing some terrible karaoke. On our third drink, we felt confident enough to get on the karaoke list. First, we sang the classic Meatloaf number she chose, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. It was a lot of fun and most of the patrons applauded as we finished. The other one we sang was slower paced and even more emotional, the relatively recent opera hit Con Te Partiro. Emily looked at me as she sang, Cuando se lontana sogno all'orizzonte e mancan lo parole. When you are away, I dream of the horizon, and words fail. When I saw the look in her eyes and heard the deep sincerity in her voice, I knew I was in love and thought she might be. Most of the other patrons didn't understand the words, but politely clapped as the song ended. I stared deeply into her eyes, then French kissed her, getting much more applause. Afterward, we discussed her future. She had finished her bachelor's in history and was working on a master's in languages. She wanted to translate the logs and records of the early Spanish and Portuguese explorers. I told her there probably wouldn't be much money in it, but I thought it would be a fascinating and noble pursuit. After Sunday brunch, Chloe, Rochelle, and I returned home. We were disgusted and even more surprised at the messes all over the house. Chloe tugged my hand and quietly told me, wait a minute. She walked back into the house and returned with a large armload. She handed Laura a spray bottle and roll of paper towels. Once they cleaned things up and got dressed, Laura's explanation disgusted my wife but made me quite proud of my son. Friday night we did it until we ran out of condoms. So we went to get more. We picked up chocolate syrup, strawberry jam, and whipped cream, too. That explained the messes on the kitchen counter, floor of my home office, and his bed. Melissa held my son's hand and informed us, "We don't mind taking turns." She kissed his cheek, but Jonathan looked ready to die from shame that I wisecracked in French. Rochelle laughed, then translated for Chloe and the others, "Oh, to be young and in love."